Hi guys, my name is Antos and I'm excited to be a part of the 2022 MSI Creator Awards. I'll be judging the film category, and in this video I'm going to show you guys this little piece of artwork that I created and also a tutorial on how I created it, and hopefully that will inspire you guys to enter. And the deadline for entering for this year is May 30th. So definitely remember that date. Now I'm a filmmaker. I've been actually working on films for almost 25 years now. I started doing animation for films, then I eventually ended up doing special effects for feature films, commercials, that kind of stuff. And then later on I transitioned into film directing. Now the category that I'm judging again is the film category, which essentially means if you're going to enter that category, you got to create any sort of a video that you filmed and then digitally edited. So it could be a piece of video artwork you could call maybe a commercial or maybe a music video, or sort of like a little spot. Like in my case, I created about this MSI P100X computer. It's actually the computer that I also used to edit and do the special effects in this video. And the reason why I kind of really love using this computer, or many of the other MSI products, is that they're not only just powerful and very useful tools in filmmaking, but they're also in themselves look really beautiful. So I don't mind actually having it on my desk and kind of displaying it. It also doesn't take up too much space. So when I travel, believe it or not, I take this a lot with me. Now this computer actually has the 11th generation Intel Core i9 processor, along with the MSI GeForce RTX 3080 graphics card. So it's definitely got plenty of power to be able to handle not just the kind of edit and special effects that I'm going to show you guys in this tutorial, but you can do a lot more advanced things, even 3D graphics and animations. But before we jump into the tutorial, let me show you my piece of video artwork for this year's MSI Creator Awards. So hopefully you guys like this video and it gets you excited so you want to actually enter into this year's MSI Creator Awards. Now a little bit about how I actually filmed this spot. So everything was actually filmed right here on this desk. I don't really have to move around many things. And I in fact used the very same light that I'm using right now up here to light my setup up here to actually light the computer. Now this light has a big surface area. And the bigger the surface area and the closer to you are going to be putting that light to your subject, which in this case it's the computer, then the softer the light is going to be. So that's my key light. Now I also used a second light which has these sort of digital filters built in, so you can very easily adjust the color of the light. And I adjusted the color of that light to be a little bit bluish, to kind of give it a bit more of a contrast lighting wise. And I also placed it pretty much on the opposite side of my key light. And then to get the actual shots of the computer, I used basically a camera on a little slider. Now it could be any slider, could be a motorized slider like the one that I'm using in this case, but it could be one that you're using and just kind of going to push it with your hand. You could even just do it by holding the camera with your hands. I mean, these days a lot of cameras are really good in-body image stabilization. So by carefully moving the camera, you could actually get pretty nice and smooth shots. And then to help that even more, shoot everything in slow motion. So higher frame rate than you're actually going to be playing it back. So most videos you're going to play back at 24, maybe 25 or 30 frames per second, depending on what format you're doing it for. So if you shoot any frame rate higher than that, and then you play it back at 24, 25 or 30 frames per second, then the effect is going to be even slower, longer shot, but also smoother. So that's also another way of getting these nice and smooth camera movements in your shots. Now my concept for this video was sort of built around this little mystery of where I'm showing you guys something, but you're not quite sure what you're looking at until the big reveal at the end. And so I wanted to first concentrate on extreme close-ups of the computer and showing some of the cool design elements, like even just a little grid here on the side of the computer that has these nice vent openings that they themselves look really interesting. So I have a close-up of that, for example, close-up of like some of the lighting, you know, on the edge of the computer here, things like that. Now, one thing right away I realized is that you can see the logo, right, throughout pretty much all the shots. And since I didn't want to reveal what we're looking at until pretty much the very last shot, so I knew right away when I was filming that in editing, I was going to have to, in some of the shots, erase the MSI logo. And that's pretty much what I did. So these are sort of the shots that I got. And the next thing I had to do was to put all the footage on the computer and do a very rough cut, which is going to sort of give me an idea of how long my edit is going to be and kind of what are the shots I'm going to actually include in the final video. All right, so I did all of my editing in DaVinci Resolve, and it's also the same software where I did all the special effects for this video. Now, of course, you guys can use any video editor. I just like using DaVinci Resolve because I can do, like I said, my editing, my color grading, and my special effects all in one software, so I don't have to switch back and forth. Some of the other editing software will not allow you to do some of the special effects that I'm going to do here. So you then, in that case, you would have to, you know, export your footage, like your edit, to some other software that lets you to do some of the effects. But anyways, so here in DaVinci Resolve, you notice I have one timeline here, and if I just sort of play it through, I'm playing it at 2 times the speed because it is actually quite a bit long. I right now basically picked more or less like the shots that I like from all the shots that I got, and this is what I would call sort of like a really rough cut, like an assembly cut, you can call it. And so once I know more or less, like, okay, I want to use this shot, and this is probably where the logo is going to get revealed, then I can start sort of going through there and just basically pick my, you know, my best moments. So as I'm building the edit, another thing you'll notice is I'm kind of, you know, following my original concept. So first we started with something very kind of, you know, undefined. So you know, somebody who doesn't know this computer that won't know what they're looking at. Then here we cut to this. Obviously we're gonna have to take out that MSI logo on this footage, but just by looking at the shot, you still wouldn't be 100% sure if this is a computer or it could be, I don't know, some other kind of, you know, device with a graphics card. Then here it's clear, okay, we're looking, you know, most likely at a computer, but we still don't know what computer it is. And I'm going to have to, in this one, take out this logo, so we don't know that it's MSI. Here it's 100% clear, okay, it's a computer, you see these inputs. And in this one, you know, we cut before we actually see the logo. And then in this shot, the logo is going to be erased until we get towards the end, and then here is going to be the reveal. And then the last shot, we'll see the actual computer. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually just go shot by shot and see which shots actually need effects. So this opening shot for sure is okay. Now this shot, I can see right away, I need to take out that logo. But before I actually jump into doing the effects, I personally like to make a copy of the shot. So I'll just kind of put it here, and I'll disable it now. But this way I can always sort of go back in case I don't like the effects that I did. Or also just to go back and kind of compare with the other shots. This shot doesn't need any effects. There's no logo to need to be removed. This one does need. So we'll make a copy of it again. And then this shot here at the end, I wasn't planning originally to do effects on this shot, but I will do. And I'm going to show you guys why in a minute. Just put it here and again, disable it. The reason is because, you know, sometimes you end up doing this sort of what I call these invisible effects, where people, if you do a good job, people won't even know there's an effect in there. Well, in this case, like I said, if I had more time to actually film this whole video, and then also if I was in like a more of a controlled setting, like in a studio, then I would have taken care of everything there that's in the background. The one thing definitely that I thought wouldn't be as visible are those cables there. I kind of kept it away from the key light, but the backlight was still lighting it. You see like some of the lights there from my other computer. You see the light stand actually from the backlight as in the shot. Like, it's just, to me, it's just not really something you want to be noticing or looking at. I want the audience eye to be kind of drawn by this computer itself. Now, the first thing I can actually do with the shot before I do any special effects is to kind of fix up the shot, or or make it a bit better just by using color grading or advanced color grading. And in DaVinci Resolve, I like the fact that I can kind of jump back and forth between editing, color grading, or Fusion, which is basically where you do your special effects, or Fairlight, where you do audio mixing. And anyways, in here on this shot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another node here. In case, if I want to do some preliminary sort of adjustments, I can always go back to my first node. But yeah, in this node, I'll do a mask here. So I'm going to go to masks like that, maybe kind of stretch it out a little bit. So it's like this, feather it a bit more. And now inside this mask, I can start kind of playing around with things like, for example, I can take the lift here. I can bring it down. Oh, and actually, well, right now, for example, if I were to, like you can see, make these adjustments, it's all happening within the mask. I actually want to reverse that. So I'll click here. And so now we're basically, whatever is inside the mask is not getting affected, everything else is. So you notice I kind of made it darker. So that's one thing we're doing there. I might even go, let me turn off the mask right now. Let's even go into maybe here, the blur. Let's even like blur the background a bit more. So you see, if I drag it, you see how everything gets sort of blurry in the background. That's definitely too much, but just blurring it by a bit more. And let me see if I can actually darken it overall even more. Somewhere there. So you're really, really just kind of paying attention to the computer. Let me even blur it a bit more. And this is again before and after. So you right away now you'll notice this difference. Like it's just, again, your eye gets drawn more by the computer. But now the final touch, I would say, well, basically visually final touch. The final one is going to be adding music, but the final touch here is, removing those logos in some of these shots. So maybe first I'll show you guys maybe how I do this shot. Go to Fusion tab, and then I can start working in here. And Fusion kind of works, by doing effects on each node, kind of like a node affects your shot. So the first node is media in, and then media out is going to be your last node. Whatever you put in between here is what it's going to transform your shot. Media out basically means that it's going out back to your edit. So the first thing we're going to do in this shot is just kind of, here I'm going to press 1 to kind of go on my first view where I can see the original shot, and then here I'll be able to see this is set to number 2. I can see my final effect. So the first thing I'm going to see, notice up here right away, is that, I want to basically be able to track this element, right, for one of the signs throughout the whole shot. It starts out more or less there in the shot, but it's the most visible here in the middle. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to basically add a thing. You press Shift and then Space to bring up these select tools. And I'm going to look for planar tracker. So here we have added. And with the planar tracker, what that is going to allow me to do is to basically track, like I said, a portion of the shot. So I'm going to move it up here. This is going to be the center, and then I can draw basically a shape. So I know, I'm seeing more or less up here everything, but I'm going to extend a little bit here and a little bit this way to the tracking area, so that it's, as it goes in, especially towards the end, slightly out of the shot, it's still visible. And now, I can track it here. So basically, you can do here step track it in the next frame, or you can just go track to the end. So that's what I'm going to do. Oh, before I do that, actually, I got to set my my reference frame. So I'm going to set this one as my main reference frame. This is frame 70. So go set, and then I can track it. And look how fast this computer does this. All right, so it tracked it pretty well there. Right towards the end, doesn't seem to be moving very well, but it's okay. It's pretty much not visible at that point. And then here, I'm going to go back to my set frame, my reference frame, and I'm going to track it backwards now. And there we have it. We have a nice tracked data. And then what I can do with that is I can create a planar transform. So you can do different ones here. You have different tracking patterns, of course. This one I did as a point. But anyways, I'll go, create a planar transform. So there's our transform. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to track also this point here. So we have another planar tracker, and again, we're going to go to a frame where this basically part looks good. So somewhere here, well, maybe before it gets completely dark. So let's say, this frame somewhere here. And so the first thing again I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of draw around the area that I want to track. Now I know I definitely want to track this, but at the beginning of the shot, this part is out of the frame, so I'm going to track like somewhere here a little bit more on this part, basically to the right side. I'm going to set my reference frame and I'll track forward first. Good. Then go back to my reference frame and then track backwards. Okay, good. And that's kind of how you can get around problems like we see at the beginning of the shot, that our element or that circle there is not in the frame, but obviously the rest of the shot is also moving at the same speed. So you can just make your tracking area a bit bigger. And anyways, I'm going to create another planar transform. So this will be for our second circle. And you can name these if you want. And we can actually disconnect these now. We don't really need these. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do another like bypass here. The out, and these ones I'm going to connect them separately. So I can still view it, and if I need to make some adjustments to these trackers, but again, we're going to use these planar transforms in a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is go maybe here to our first planar transform, which is this one here. We'll go to our set frame, so I believe it was 70, and then on this frame, I'm going to go back to our original media. And I'm going to basically freeze it or freeze frame it. So we're going to look for time stretcher or time speed you can do. So let's add that. Let me just disconnect these because we don't really need them right now. Anyways, with our time speed, and I'm again going to bypass it. So I'm going to connect the original media in and out. And in our time speed, we're going to kind of work on it separately. So the time speed now, I did it so I can see it in the viewport, in the left one. So as I scroll now, you'll notice this is how it is. Let's go back to our frame 70 and our time speed now. I'm basically going to set here the speed to 0. But I want to offset that. So if I offset it, what was it, frame 70, and we'll go to that frame. So meaning now, see, as I scroll, this is our time speed node on the left window, and the right window is still viewing the media out. So you notice the effect doesn't change. It's still there as I scroll to a shot. It looks the same as the original shot, but our time speed here basically has frozen that. And so now, if and I can do right away the same thing. Like if I want to go, I can again go here, apply another time speed here node. Again, I'm gonna bypass these, so they're separate. I'm gonna switch it now to viewer 1. And again, I'm going to adjust this to be 0, the actual speed, but we want that frame to be like later on where we can actually see it properly. Let's say somewhere here. So these will be our 2 elements that we're going to paint. So the first one I'm going to do is this one. So time speed 1. And the way I'm going to basically work on it is I want to actually paint this. So let us switch here to the first, in the first viewfinder. The monitor here to time speed 1, and again we're going to click shift space and look for paint. We're going to take this one, and now in the paint module we have different tools here. For example, one thing I'm going to do is just do a single stroke, not the multi-stroke. And then here we have the clone tool, and we have the opacity, all that stuff. And basically it's like painting, you know, in kind of like in Photoshop pretty much. Somewhere there, and I can just kind of go and say, okay, I want to sample here by pressing Alt, somewhere sample from here, and we can start painting it. So you see, it's pretty straightforward. You can again click Alt to kind of switch every so on our brush, and that's more or less the process. Maybe take someone from here. Now I could just pick a solid color like black or gray or whatever, but I want to be actually to, as you can see, kind of borrow that texture that you see here, because yeah, basically I want that texture to kind of appear in the whole thing. But anyway, so here's our painted here element. And now what next thing I'm going to do is I can basically cut this out. Channel Boolean. So add that, and then basically I can draw a mask here, our spline tool, and I'm going to draw a mask. So I want to pretty much draw like a circle around here. Now, if you wanted to, you could actually just do like exactly within here and get it exactly, because if you need to do expanded or contracted, you can still do that with the settings. Now I'm going to switch here so you can see it in the first viewer, and oh, it's not showing up, so let's make sure here we're applying mask, and there it is. Okay, so make sure we're multiplying by mask. Okay, so there it is. So you can see we kind of cut it out. And now we can go back here to the polygon, and here is where we can do the soft edge, so we can soften it, maybe not that much. So it's kind of more of a gradual change. So now we basically want to take this and apply it back on our, you know, original footage. So the way we'll do that is we take here this node, it's a merge node, and we just take the out from here and we connect it to here. And now you see in our media out, this shows up, right? The problem is though that it's, you know, well, if I scroll the shot, you see it's kind of just sitting there dead in that one spot. It's not moving, right? So now to be able to have this actually follow and move along with the shot, we have to now take that planar transform data that we had, and we can just kind of plug it in here in between these two. And now you'll notice that it's soundly moving, and that's because we tracked it before. So there's our shot, there's our effect, and now we can do quickly the same thing basically for this one, right? Like when you're looking up here, maybe it looks good, but then like look towards the end of the shot where it starts getting darker especially. You'll notice that it starts getting darker, but this part especially is way too bright. This part is also should be a little darker. So you'll notice things. Plus another thing is that it's also like too sharp. Like this part now is out of focus. The camera is focusing more here, and this thing is you know, it's still too sharp. So that's when you can now still go in, and that's the kind of cool thing about working with nodes is we can take basically anything that happens between our paint node and basically our boolean here, where we cut it out and then we tracked it, you know, or applied the track motion. So I'll just move this here just for clarity for you. But you can basically add anything in here. So the same thing I'm going to do up here in the front, or, you know, with the first node. So this is our first point, this one. I'll take the paint node and I'm going to add, let's see, an effect for, let's say, color color corrector. So there. And what I want to do is I want to adjust the brightness, right? So let's go here. Contrast, we have brightness, and more or less like where we are here, this looks good. So I can click a keyframe here, but like as we go back here, it starts getting darker. Definitely somewhere here. I want to now adjust the brightness now, so I'm gonna, you know, just slide this down. So again, you're kind of playing around with it. And now the next thing I'm going to do after the color corrector is, again, shift space, and I'm going to look for blur. Here is our blur. So it's now added here. After the color corrector, we're going to add the blur effect, and then it goes to the, where we cut it out, the Chilean Boolean, and then it gets tracked. So again, somewhere here is where it should be like nicely in focus. So we can choose Gaussian blur, or actually you can just do box blur, might look better. And then the blur size. So here we'll put it at 0, because here it's supposed to be sharp. And I'm clicking, by the way, this little point here. This adds the keyframe. And now I'm gonna go here where you can see it's starting to go, out of focus, and that's where I'm gonna start dragging the effect here. See, so now it's blurred it more. And the same thing here. Let's see, double check. And you can sometimes add keyframes in between. If you want to, you can go here to keyframes and you can actually adjust these keyframes. And then you do the same thing for, for the other part. And here, let me just jump and kind of show you guys how the final here shot looks. And you kind of go through all of these shots basically, and you do that. Now here with this last shot, actually, where we're doing the kind of big logo reveal, if you're wondering how I did this, it's the exact same concept. Basically, I erased the logo like I did in the other shots. Then I just kind of fade the logo back in. But then to create these rays, here, let me jump into Fusion. So basically, I take, and then again, don't get scared by the amount of nodes. It's just that's how it is when you start adding one thing after another. Basically, in here, I load in the basically a shot here, which is the actual logo. So you can see it is the MSI logo that I downloaded. And then I basically just put that logo on top here. And again, I can easily do that because I have the planar transform, basically where I tracked it. So I just copied that motion, that tracked motion from the original logo. And I have it revealed. And then what I just add is I added this sort of noise. If you look at it, this is how the noise looks. So as you're kind of going through it, it will basically, as you scroll, kind of the noise makes this logo sort of slowly appear. And it's, you can kind of adjust it here. And I animated the detail, the contrast of that noise, all that stuff. And then I just added then another effect called light rays in another node. And that's it. So you can see kind of goes to like that. So there's no point in me, again, showing you guys the exact same thing, pretty much the whole process, and then just to show you these two things at the end. But that's basically what it's done. And then that's how the final shot basically ends up looking. So here, if I switch, see, just that gets composited here, merged on top of that. And again, to merge it, in here in my settings, I have the blend. And you notice I kind of it's animated. So as it moves, at the beginning it's 0 basically. And then, and that's where nothing's visible. And then as we get here, it starts going on. And it's actually never 100%. It just kind of goes in and then it fades out again back to 0. So I have these keyframes. And that's by this point we're seeing the original logo. So it's very, very simple effect. So again, once you know how to do the first shot, you can kind of apply it and do the same thing for all the other shots. Here, this is kind of, again, I kind of cleaned up this whole area. So I basically duplicated that whole area there and I painted it with the paint node and I painted out the cables and all that stuff. And then just tracked it and applied it. So again, the same concept. And if you look at the original shot, it definitely makes a difference, not having those cables there visible. But again, it's a simple thing. And when the audience doesn't even know that there were originally cables there, it's just, they won't even be looking there for the fact that, like, even notice here when I was painting it, the slight little imperfections, like here is a slightly different shade than this stuff here that I painted, but with the clone tool. But yeah, still, like I said, when the audience doesn't know that there was something there originally, they won't even pay attention to it. They're going to be looking at the computer. Now the final thing with the music and the effects looks like this. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial and it inspires you to actually end up entering this year's MSI Creator Awards. Remember, deadline is May 30th. And again, my name is Antos, and I can't actually wait to see your submissions. Bye.